Hi, I'm Babar and this is my guide to the ABRSM Grade 8 double bass scales. As with my previous scales videos, I'll leave the timings for the different types of scales of the video in the description below, majors, minors, arpeggios, etc. So just flick to the part of the video that's relevant to you. My usual disclaimer that these are by no means definitive fingerings. These are just the fingerings that I teach that have worked well for my pupils and that I find easy to remember. They'll also include a few tricks to get around the instrument that are kind of useful for playing just in all pieces, in all contexts, not just learning scales, which I think is really important, but I'm totally open to suggestions. So if you have different suggestions for fingerings, do please leave them in the comments below. And a final apology for this video, I'm doing this on my slightly cheaper jazz bass as my posh bass is in the shop. So I'm hoping that I don't run out of fingerboard space for the 3-octave scales. So, starting with major scales, there are 4 key centres for grade 8. E, G, B and D, where we're going to play all the majors, minors, chromatics, arpeggios, doms and dims, etc. But for grade 8 there are also a couple of extra scales, but we're going to start with B major. B major is going to be the slight anomaly, as I'm going to try and use normal fingerings, as in the same fingerings for all the scales, or as similar fingerings as possible for all the scales for grade 8. But for B major we're actually going to use a similar fingering to what I described in grade 7. So, B major, starting with first finger in first position for B. B major's got 5 sharps in the key signature. Any scale that I start on the first finger, I'm going to use 1 4 2 4 1 4 2 4. So first 1 4, third 2 4, second and a half 1 4, fourth 2 4. B major bottom octave. And then as we get to the 4th finger for the middle octave, I'm going to use 4th finger major scale fingering, which is 4, back a semitone on the 1, and then back to where you were to 4. A technique my teacher used to call spring back fingering. So 4, back 1, 2, 4. Then F sharp's G sharp, 1, 3. Then thumb where your 3rd finger is, and then 2, 3 for the A sharp to B in a chromatic handshake. So the top octave fingering sounds like this. I like to play even notes for my major scales. I just find it easier to play even notes rather than using a long tonic. But I will focus on expressing musically through scales, so moving the bow towards the bridge and increasing the speed of the bow. So this is the whole of B major. B major. Okay, so D flat major is the next one, 5 flats in the key signature. D flat, the same as C sharp, obviously 4 fingers in first position. So we're starting on 4th finger. So we can use the same 4th finger pattern. 4, back a semitone, 1 to half, back to first, 2, 4. So 4, 1, 2, 4. Back to half, A flat to B flat in half, 1, 4. And then second and a half, 2, 4, C to D flat. So bottom octave. And now we're going to introduce a new set of fingering. This is major scale top octave fingering, starting on a 4th finger. So 4 for the D flat. First finger is going to go a tone past where your 4th finger is, to 5th position, E flat to F. And then thumb to where your 4th finger is, chromatic hand shape, so G flat to A flat. And then thumb to where your 3rd finger is, diatonic hand shape, 1, 2, 3. So a gap, tone gap between your thumb and 1st finger, tone gap between your 1st finger and 2nd finger, and then a semitone gap. So the top octave sounds like this. And then finish it off. So that's D flat major and that new top octave fingering. Up to D major now. So D major, 2 sharps in a key signature. For the bottom octave we can use exactly the same fingering that we've used previously for grade 3. Really easy fingering, 0, 1, 4, 0, 1, 4, up to 3rd, 2, 4. Then when we get to the 4th finger, in 3rd position, we can use that same top octave fingering. So just 4, 1st finger a tone past your 4th finger, so E to F sharp in 5th. Chromatic hand shape, thumb on the 4th finger, G to A, 1, 3. Thumb on the A, 1, 2, 3. You can check the harmonic, and then come back down. So it's here that I'd like to talk about phrasing for major scales. I play all of my major scales using even notes, but when we come to slur them, we're going to slur them in sets of 7, so slurring at the octave. So for this, we kind of want to feel like it's 7 beats in a bar, 7/8 as is written in the music. For this, I'd use the phrasing 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 in a way of counting the notes that you're playing, and using the phrasing 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2. If you play the scales really rhythmically, they'll sound really confident and really concise, and that's the best way of phrasing the scales. I'll talk about slurring later on in this video, but for the time being, yeah, just think about playing rhythmically 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3, and the scales will really sit nicely under the fingers. So next, E flat major. E flat major, 3 flats in the key signature. We're going to use 2 sets of fingering now. So first finger in half position for your E flats, 1 4 2 4 1 4 2 4. So half to second and a half, back to second to third and a half. Same fingering we use for grade 5. So 1 4 2 4. And then once we're in third and a half position with our 4th finger, again we can use that same top octave fingering. So 4 1 3 in 6th or passing position, and then 1 3 in a chromatic hand shape. Then diatonic at the top, 1 2 3. And you might have noticed there that I used the harmonic G on the way back down, just to check my intonation. So that's E flat major. So now we get into the interesting scales, 3 octave scales. So for the first 3 octave scale, we're going to play E major. E major's got 4 sharps in the key signature, and even though it's a 3 octave scale and it might seem a bit daunting, we're just going to use finger patterns that we've repeated from before. So, beginning of E major, we can use the same fingering that we used for D major. So 0 1 4 0 1 4 2 4, first to third. Same fingering for D major, just starting on the E string. We're on the 4th finger now, so we can use that 4th finger major scale fingering. 4, back a semitone, up to third again, 2 4, back to second and a half, 1 4, to 4th, 2 4. And now we're on the G string in a higher position on 4, so we can use the top octave major scale fingering. 4, F sharp to G sharp, 1 3. You can think of that as a semi-chromatic hand shape. Tone between thumb and first finger, and then semitones between first, second and third finger. Or then a chromatic hand shape, so thumb to third finger, A to B, thumb to your third finger again, C sharp, D sharp, E. So even though it feels like a really long scale, if you just use 3 set finger patterns, it sits really nicely. Again, phrasing 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 in sets of 7. Which works quite nicely. So, slurring. We're going to slur at the octave, which is quite a lot of notes to fit into one bow. And I think the thing to remember is that you want to have as much bow as possible, as close to the bridge as possible, for the top octave. Which means you don't necessarily need to use a full bow for the lower octave. In fact, you can get away with using just over half a bow, really, for the lower octave, near the fingerboard for the phrasing, and then just make sure that you've got a full bow to use for the top octave. I think that might be slightly quicker than the ABRSM recommendations in the book, but I think that's a good speed to actually play the scales, and it kind of gets around the bass nice and quickly, but not too fast. You can hear all of the notes, hear all the intonation, and it's pretty good for the bowing. So our last major scale is G major, 3 octaves. So G major, going to start in first position. G major's obviously got 1 sharp in the key signature, F sharp. So G, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1. Now I'm going to get to second position, 2, 4, in order to be able to use my 4th finger major scale fingering. So 4, back is semitone to first, up to second, 2, 4, to 4th, 1, 4, and then 2, 3, in 6th or passing position. So here we're going to use that top octave major scale fingering, and it's really going to be useful. So 3, semi-chromatic hand shape, so thumb where your G is, A to B, chromatic hand shape, thumb where your 3rd finger is again, 1, 3, and then a diatonic hand shape, thumb to where the 3rd finger is again on the D, and then 1, 2, 3, excuse my intonation. And again, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So that's G major, 3 octaves, and that's all of the major scales finished. Okay, moving on to minor scales. We're going to use the same key centers that we use for majors, and again I'm going to try and use the same fingerings as possible. I should say before we start this passage of minor scales that these are probably the hardest scales that you have to play in any of the ABRSM grades, especially some of the ones later on are quite tricky, but I'm going to try and keep the fingerings as consistent as possible. Fairly easy one to start though, B minor harmonic. So starting in first position, nice and easy, 1, 4, 0, 1, 4, 0, 2 on the A, D and G string. And then using your first finger to 4th finger to play the B with 1st finger in 2nd half position. And now they're going to use the same harmonic minor fingering we used for grade 7, so 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 2, 2, 3. So it's the equivalent of going to a semi-chromatic and chromatic hand shape at the top, 2nd and a half, 4th, which is 6th and a half, F sharp to G, and then 2, 3. Back to 2 in first. For B minor melodic, we can use pretty similar fingering. We just need to add the raised 6th in, so 1, 4, 1, 4, back to half this time, 1, 4 and half for the G sharp to A sharp, still going up to 2nd and half for the B. And then we're going to use the same melodic minor scale fingering with the 1st finger that we used for grade 7, so 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 3, 2, 3 for the raised 6th and the raised 7th on the way up, lowering the 7th, lowering the 6th on the way down, 1, 2, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1. So the whole scale sounds like this. And then pop back to first for the A, open G. That's B minor melodic. So that fingering 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 4, 1 is going to become quite significant later on. So C sharp harmonic minor. Going to start C sharp, 4 fingers in first position, 4, back to half, 1, and then back to first, 1, 4. Then 2, 4 in third position on the D string, 1 of course, for the raised 7th, and then up to your first finger for the C sharp. So the bottom octave sounds like this. Now you've got your first finger on the C sharp, so we can use that same fingering, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 2, 2, 3. Cheeky shift back on the first finger. It's not ideal to shift back on the first finger, but I think it's better to keep the fingering the same on the way up as on the way down. So using that same 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 3 in a semi-chromatic hand shape, 2, 3 in a chromatic hand shape on the way up. So that's C sharp harmonic minor. C sharp melodic minor is one of the most faffy scales to play. With my fingering, maybe I should change it, but starting first position, 4, back to half, 1, up to first again, 1, 4, back to half again, 1 for the G sharp, and then we need an A sharp and B sharp for the raised 6th and 7th. So we're going to move to second position, 1, 4, and then up to third and half for the 1 again. So 4, half. Once on the first finger, we can use exactly the same melodic minor scale fingering for the top octave. 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 4, 1, and then 4 for the lowered 7th, the B, back to half, A to G sharp, 2, 1, 4 for the F sharp, back to 2, 1 for the C. So that, the way back, just using that kind of 4 back to 2, 1 fingering. So the whole C sharp melodic minor scale. That's one of the harder ones to remember. Again, practicing octaves. Just do that a couple of times and then finish off octave at a time will really help. So now D minor scales are far easier. So D minor harmonic, raised third, lowered third, sorry, lowered 6th, raised 7th. So first octave is nice and easy. 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2 in first, and then up to third position 2. So. And it's here we're going to introduce a new set of harmonic minor scale top octave fingering. So we're going to start on the 4th finger, and then 2, 4, E to F in 5th, then putting your thumb where your 4th finger is again, first finger on the G, and a diatonic hand shape. So G, tone gap to your A, and then B flat with the 3rd finger, then thumb to where your 3rd finger is, semi-chromatic hand shape, 2, 3 at the top. The reason we're doing that is you have to get that minor 3rd between the B flat and the C sharp. So the top octave again, 4, 2, 4, diatonic hand shape, sorry, 4, 2, 4, diatonic hand shape, and then 2, 3 at the top. 2, so phrasing sets of 7. D harmonic minor. For D melodic minor, just raise bottom octave exactly the same, just raise the 6th as well, so play 4 fingers for the B natural. And now we're going to use a new fingering for melodic minor scales. So we're going to start the same 4, 2, 4 in 5th, E to F. From here we can almost think of the scale, the top of the scale after the minor 3rd is a major scale, because we're raising the 6th and 7th on the way up. So 4, G to A, semi-chromatic hand shape, 1, 3. So 4, 2, 4, 1, 3, and then thumb to 3rd finger, diatonic hand shape at the top. So I'll play that bottom octave, that octave again. Then push your first finger up and move your thumb up a semitone. So you're now in a semi-chromatic hand shape. 1, back to a diatonic hand shape as if you're playing a melodic minor scale. And then 1, and then 2, 1 for the B flat. So that top octave fingering I'll show you one more time. So 4, 2, 4, 1, 3, diatonic, 1, 2, 3, 1, diatonic now on the way back down, 4, 2. So it's worth practicing that, probably in that position, because you can use a few harmonics to check your intonation. For that melodic minor and harmonic minor top octave, because we're now going to use that top octave fingering for the next 3 scales. So E flat harmonic minor, we can start on the first finger. So we can start by using the first finger fingering 1 4, second and a half 1 4, back 1 2, and then 2 4. Now up on our 4th finger, we can use that same harmonic minor scale fingering we've just used for D, but upper semitones. So 4, diatonic hand shape, semi-chromatic at the top. 2, back to a 2. Again in sets of 7. For the melodic minor scale, we can use similar fingerings. So first finger, melodic minor scale fingering, 1 4, 1 4, back 1 4 in second, 2 4 in third and a half. So using that same 1 4, 1 4, 1 4, 2 4, and then we're going to use the same melodic minor scale fingering we used for D, but upper semitone. So 4, 2 4, 1 3, diatonic hand shape now at the top. Change to a semi-chromatic hand shape, back to a diatonic, so switch them around. And then 1, 2 1. And it's that change from a semi-chromatic to a diatonic, back to a semi-chromatic, back to a diatonic. You switch those 2 hand shapes around, which kind of characterises the melodic minor scale fingering. So, E harmonic minor, 3 octaves. Thankfully the bottom octave is quite simple, just stay in half position, 0 2 4, 0 2 4, 1, and then up to first position for the first finger on the E. Now we've got the first finger on the E, we can use the same finger we've just used for E flat, but just upper semitone, so 1 4, third 1 4, second and a half 1 2, fourth 2 4. We're in 4th, we're on a 4th finger, so use the top octave 4th finger harmonic minor scale fingering, 4, 2 3, 1 2 3, semi-chromatic 2 3, 2 2 1. Cheeky shift back. E harmonic minor is actually a pretty good one to practice that fingering, because you've got a really clear chromatic hand shape at the beginning. Then a diatonic hand shape with your thumb on the G, which is like the same as the top octave of a C major scale. Thumb to where you've just been, and then a semi-chromatic. So you've got plenty of reference points of hand shapes you should know, so that's a good one to practice, that top octave hand shape. Similar for the E melodic minor, we're going to use familiar hand shapes. So E, 1 2, open A, C sharp this time with 4 fingers, back to half 1, first finger, so 1 4, 1 4, 1 4, 2 4, and then chromatic hand shape, semi-chromatic 1 3, diatonic at the top, back to a semi-chromatic, back to a diatonic, and then we're going to lower the 6th and 7th so you can stay in first position. Open D, 2 1, 4 2. So that's the E 3 octaves done, and now we've got the last of the harmonic scales. This is G. So G's not quite as straightforward as E, but it's still not super hard once you've learned those 2 sets of fingerings. So G, we're going to start in half position, 4 0, 1 4 and a half, and then 2 4 in second and a half, 1. So up to third. So now you're in your first first finger, you've got your first finger for the G. So we can use the harmonic minor scale, first finger fingering, 1, 4, 5th position, 1, 4, back to 4th, 1, 2, and then 2, 3. Chromatic handshake, 2, 3. Diatonic handshake, 1. And then 2, 3 at the top. Cheeky shift back on the first finger. So that's the G harmonic minor scale. For G melodic minor, we can use similar things. So we need an E natural and an F sharp. So starting in half, 4 0 1 4. Move to first, open D, E, F sharp, and then G first finger in third position. Now we can use our first finger melodic minor scale fingering. So 1 4, 5th 1 4, same positions, 4th 1 4, 2 3. So now we're on our same top octave melodic minor scale fingering, so 3, 2, 3, 1, 3 in a semi-chromatic, diatonic 1, 2, 3, change that to a semi-chromatic hand shape, back to 3, 2, 1 in a diatonic, 1, 2, 1, 4, 1, and then we can go all the way back to half, 4, 1. So, I should have said those are also slurred in octaves. Again, using that same less bow at the beginning, more bow at the top, really emphasising that rhythm of 7, and that'll help. But again, practice octave at a time will help to settle those scales, and practice the scales in pairs, melodics and harmonics, because there are so many similar positions that you use. It's quite often just a case of changing which finger you use, and so if you learn the positions, as in the shifts where you put your fingers, as long as you've got a solid handshake, once you then change your fingers that you can use, it's a good way of learning the melodic minor scales. But those are pretty hard scales. I think those are the easiest fingerings to get around them. But that's all of the minor scales done for grade 8. Okay, so here are the grade 8 major and minor arpeggios. For these, we move back into our key centres of B, D, E and G. So we just need to focus on those 4 key centres, which is quite nice. So starting with B major, I'm going to use a similar fingering that I used for B flat major in grade 7 scales video. So starting first, 1, second and a half, 4, 1, D sharp to F sharp, up to 4th position, B with 4 fingers, and then 2 across. Then I'm going to play the F sharp in 5th and a half with 4 fingers, and then stretch down to my 3rd finger to play the B. And so that's the B major arpeggio. Quite a few method books suggest using a diatonic handshake, thumb on the F sharp, and then stretching out like 1, 2, 3 for the top notes, the F sharp to B there. But I found that with my younger pupils, slightly smaller hands, that's a bit of a stretch, and the B always came out flat. So I prefer to use, even though it's not ideal, use a 4 to a 3. And what I'm thinking there is, I'm thinking my thumb is coming a tone past my F sharp onto a G sharp, and I'm using a chromatic hand shape, and that's how I'm finding my my top B. And for grade 8, these are slurred in sets of 3. So again, starting with less bow near the fingerboard and increasing. So that's B major arpeggio. B minor arpeggio, we're going to use exactly the same fingering, just change the major thirds to minor thirds. So B, D with 2 fingers, 1 across, up to 4th again, 4, 1 across this time, and that same shift. So keeping those minor thirds nice and low. For D major arpeggio, I'm going to use an open D to start and then move into 4th position. So open D, F sharp A, 4 in the A string, 1 across. So then I move down to the 6th position here and play the harmonic D, or stop D, F sharp 2 across. So move into a chromatic hand shape, so thumb going just before where your F sharp was, and then stretch out that D harmonic. So again, the whole thing. And again, the reason I like doing that fingering is this shape here, the D to F sharp, can be used quite a lot in 6th position, and then just getting used to. You can think about your thumb going a tone past where your 3rd finger is again, and a chromatic hand shape. Plenty of harmonics to help with tuning in that one. So then for D minor arpeggio, open D, 2 in 4th, 1 across, 3, then 1 across for the F natural, same positions. They're the D arpeggios. And then moving into 3 octave arpeggios, E major. So E major I use a slightly strange fingering for. There are lots of different ways of fingering E major, and loads of different method books have different methods of doing it, and actually loads of my different teachers, I think they've all taught me different fingering for E major, but the one that I'm going to use, they all kind of start the same. So open E, G sharp 1, so 0, 4, 1, and then up to 3rd, 4, 2, 4, up to 4th. And then moving up the D string, I'm going to play my E with the 1st finger, G sharp, 4 fingers across in the chromatic hand shape. Then I'm going to move up on my thumb, diatonic hand shape. And so that's the tricky bit there, the E to G sharp. It's the only time that I really endorse shifting on a thumb, but it's worth practicing that because you're going to have to use it in some pieces, shifting up on a thumb, so it's a nice arpeggio to try it on. E minor, use exactly the same fingering, so open E, except minor 3rd, so open E, 2 for the G natural, B 1 across, and then 3rd position 4, 1 across this time for the G natural, 4, and then again play the E on the D string, semi-chromatic hand shape this time for the harmonic G, and then again thumb. So that's our E major minor, and then lastly for the arpeggios, G. I'm going to start in 2nd position for my G. For G major, 1, 4, 1 in 3rd, and then 1 across, and then 4, 1 in 4th, and then G thumb for the G, semi-chromatic hand shape for the B, then find that D, you can use the harmonic to check it, and then G. So the whole thing. For the top octave, by all means, use the harmonics to help. And then as you get more used to those shifts, you can start putting your thumb down in that diatonic hand shape to find that G as well, and that'll help. And then so for G minor, similar things, G up to 3rd again, but this time 2 fingers for the B flat, 1 across, G, down to 4th again, 2, 1, G. You could use a chromatic hand shape. I'm going to use a semi-chromatic hand shape and play with my 2nd finger for the B flat, just because I've already got used to using that semi-chromatic hand shape for the B natural, so. And that's the all of the arpeggios finished. Okay, so for chromatic scales, for grade 3 we talked about really simple, if you're in half to first, shifting 1 to 1, moving back from first half, 4 to 4. Grade 5, it got a little bit more complicated in terms of like finishing a scale 1, 2, 4, so you need to adjust whatever you're doing back down here. And in grade 7 we went a little bit further, and that there's 3 different types of shifts you can do. 0, 1, and then shift, 0, 1, 2, and then shift, and then 0, 1, 2, 4, and then shift. And whatever you do down here, you want to do the same at the top, and then you'll always use the same positions on the way down. So that's the kind of basic rules for playing chromatic scales. For grade 8 scales, for E, G, B and D, we've actually only got 2 hand shapes that we're going to use, and unfortunately they're probably the 2 easiest. So we're going to start with chromatic scales starting on E, phrasing it in sets of 6. And so from the beginning, open E, half to first, getting up to the G string. Once we're here, the fingering we use is actually 0, 1, 2, 4, so we're going to use the kind of easier positions of half, second half, and then fourth. And there we just come back down using exactly the same positions. So the whole scale slares in sets of 6. Now for G chromatic, we actually use exactly the same fingering, just starting on G and then just adding 1, 2, 3 at the top for F, F sharp, G. So same positions, half, second half, fourth. Now we're going to add passing position or sixth thumb. So starting on G with the second finger. Certain sets of 6. Nice. So now we move on to B. So for B, we'll start at the beginning exactly the same, and then the only shift we need to make, that we need to change, is we're going to shift 1 to 1 in half position, and that means we're going to use first position, third position, fifth position, sixth and a half position, and in a chromatic hand shape, placing your thumb where your third finger was to get the 1, 2, 3 up to a B. So half, shifting 1 to 1 to first, third, fifth, sixth and a half chromatic hand shape, and that's going to hit our top B. Then on the way back down, shift back 3 to 3, 3, 2, 1, and then we're going to use the same positions on the way back. Because we shifted 3 to 3, we're going to use passing position fourth, second half and half on the way down. So this is B chromatic. Shift. Back. So every time we come back down a scale, we're using passing, sixth, fourth, second half, half. So that was B. And then D chromatic is actually beautifully exactly the same. We're just going to add an extra 3 notes at the top. And so we're still going to do that shift half to first, 0, 1 to 1. Still going to use first, third, fifth, sixth and a half, thumb position. And then as we go 1, 2, 3 onto B, thumb to where the third finger is, 1, 2, 3 to D as well. And then at the top from the D, we're going to go back on a 3. So D chromatic sounds like this. And that's all of the chromatic scales finished. So now we're going to move on to the double stop scale, the scale using thirds, the scale of broken thirds in the key of D. So finding in D in second position. This is just important to keep a nice curved hand shape and gap between first and second finger. So D to F sharp. 4-2 in second, and then E to G, F sharp to A, and then we're going to shift down a semitone, G to B, 4-2, down a tone, so first finger to fourth finger, A to C sharp, 4-2, down a tone again, first finger to fourth finger, to fourth position, B to D, probably the hardest shift now, down to fifth and a half, first finger to fourth finger again, C sharp to E, then I change to third finger, you can use the harmonic D, and then back, use that as one of my kind of quite regular warm-ups because I find that if my hand shape's good then it sounds really lovely. It's worth just checking every note individually before you start getting onto playing the double stopped. And actually the Seb check bowing exercise is book 1, I think that edited by Neil Tartan. The first exercise where there's plenty of double stops in the bowing exercises will help bow that exercise cleanly. Finding the exact angle between the two strings to get a nice sonorous double stop sound. So that's the scale in broken thirds. Okay, so now for our scale in running thirds. This is in the key of G. For this, I just try and keep a consistent pattern, shifting up on the first finger, back on the fourth finger, knowing where the tones and semitones are within a major scale and just being able to hear the scale. So starting on open G in first position, up to second and a half, 1-1-2, up to third, 1-1-4, up to fourth, 1-1-4, up to fifth and a half, 1-1-4, then E to F sharp to G, which you can think of as a semi-chromatic hand shape, then G to F sharp to G to A, which you can think of as a chromatic hand shape, and then G to A to B, which is a semi-chromatic hand shape. So on the way up, and then on the way back, shifting 3 to 3, or 3 to 4, depending on the way back, and again knowing those semitones. So B to A to G, A to G to F sharp, so down to a 2 there, G to F sharp to E, 3, 4, 1, F sharp to E to D, 4, 4, 1, and then E to D to C, 4, 4, 1 into third, and then 4, 4, 2 going from D to C to B, and then back to first. So the whole thing. And again, try and move the bow towards the bridge as you get up that scale to give it a sense of shape. And that's the G major running thirds. So diminished sevenths. In a similar way to the Chromatics, we're going to start at E at the bottom and then work our way up, just adding extra phrases on at the top. Diminished sevenths are made up entirely of minor thirds, and there's 2 different ways you can play a minor third on bass. You can start with your first finger and just shift down a semitone to a 4, or you can start on a 4 and then play 1 across, and that's also a minor third. And we're just going to use a mixture of those 2 to get across the bass for the beginning. So our first diminished seventh starts on E, so we're going to play E, and then second position for your G, and then because we're on a 1 we'll move down to a 4, second and a half, 4, 1, down to third, 4, 1, down to third and a half, 4, 1, and then E in fourth position. So the whole thing. And you get this kind of spidery motion as you go down, which is quite nice. And for these are slurred in sets of 4. Again, ensuring that you're adding shape to all of those. So now the next one up is starting on G. So we're going to start with the G in second position, just where we were, and just use exactly that same fingering. So G to second and a half, to third and a half, to fourth, and then just flick take out the harmonic G at the top. So the diminished 7th starting on G. Because diminished 7ths are made up in minor thirds, if you start two diminished 7ths a minor third apart, you're going to use exactly the same notes within them. So that's why E and G are a minor third apart, so that's we're using the same fingering. And now B and D are a minor third apart, so we're going to use that set of fingering. So for B, starting in third position for a B, and then one across, then third and a half, 4, 1, and then landing on a B in fourth position. And here we're going to do something slightly different. There's a kind of really nicely set diminished scale fingering in thumb position. So 4, up to the harmonic D, and then using a semi-chromatic handshake to play the F natural with 2 fingers. So 4, thumb 2. Then keep your fingers where they are and move your thumb into a chromatic handshake to play the A flat. And then third finger for the top B. So you move from a semi-chromatic handshake, moving your thumb up a semitone into a chromatic handshake to get that pattern. So the B diminished 7th, and then moving on to D, we can do exactly the same fingering, but we're just going to tag on the harmonic D at the top. So open D, I think use this one, or you can start in third, or you can use an open D, but to third and a half, 4, 1, up to fourth. Then that same fingering, semi-chromatic handshake. All of the diminished scale song. So now lastly we move on to the dominant 7ths. So dominant 7ths is if you go onto the 5th of the scale and then play an arpeggio starting on the 5th of the scale but including the 7th note, which will be a semitone lower than a major 7th. So the way they've done this for grade 8 scales is all of our dominant 7ths are going to start on the key centers that we've been working with, E, G, B and D. So our first dominant 7th is in the key of A, so it starts on E. We're going to use really similar fingering to the E major arpeggio. Fortunately it's only 2 octaves. So open E, G sharp with 4, 1 for the B, up to third, 1 for the D, and then E, up to fourth. Now because we don't need to go back to the E, we're going to resolve to the A. We can stay in third. So first, 4, 1, third, 4, 1, 4. Up to fourth, back to third, then 4 across, then back 1, 2, finishing in second and a half. And that's dominant 7th in the key of A, starting on E. Dominant 7th in the key of C is going to start in G, so start in first position, 2 for the G, G, B, 1 across, down to second for a D, then F to G, 1, 4, so the bottom octave. Then down to 4th position for a B, 1 across, up to 6th position, back to 4th, back to 2nd, back to 1st, 1, 2. So, and these are slurred in sets of 4 as well. So that's dominant 7th in the key of C that's starting on G. And now we're going to move into dominant 7th in the key of E, which is going to start on B. And then this is the first time we're really going to move and use different fingering. So starting B in first position, 1, 4, 1 in second and a half, D sharp to F sharp, up to fourth, 1, 4. So that's actually similar to the arpeggio. From here, I'm going to move down into a chromatic handshake in thumb position. So 4, D sharp with the thumb on the G string, on the D string, sorry, and then 3, back to third and a half, 1, 2. So the whole thing first, to second and a half, 4, 1, 1, 4 and 4th. Down to thumb position, chromatic handshake, thumb, 3, 1, 3. Back to 4, 1 and 4th. F sharp on the A string this time, because you only need to move back a semitone to third and a half, 1, 2 for the E. And then lastly, a dominant 7th in the key of G, we're going to start on D and we're going to play a similar pattern. So open D to start, and then we can start in 4th position for F sharp to A, down to 6th position 1, 3 for the C natural to D, 2 across for the F sharp, chromatic handshake for the A, and then all the way down to a top D. And we don't need to go back to anywhere further, we're just going to pop forward a semitone, F sharp to G in 5th position. So that last dominant 7th that we're going to do, 0 for 1 in 4th, up to 6th position, 1, 3, 2, up to a chromatic handshake, and then C to D. And that shift from the A up to the D should be pretty good because it's really similar to the arpeggio. And that's all of our major scales: harmonic, melodic minors, arpeggios, chromatics, scales in running thirds, broken thirds, diminished sevenths and dominant sevenths, all finished. Yeah, if you've got any comments and any other fingerings that you suggest, do please leave them in the comments below. And for jazz videos and different jazz resources, I've got an ensemble called Blues and Roots Ensemble, and the Instagram for that is Blues Roots Band. For the other videos, I did put up some practice resources, practicing with like drones, using the Smart Scales app, and just some metronome techniques, but I figured this video would be quite long as it is, so I haven't bothered to do that. But if you flick through to the end of the grade 5 or the grade 7 video, then there's quite a few practice tips which might help. But as far as it goes, that's all of the grade 8 scales, fingerings, my fingerings, all done.